Welcome to the Medium channel, and welcome, Gail, and thank you so much for coming on tonight. How are we doing tonight?
I'm doing fabulous, Adam. How are you tonight?
I'm great. Just 5 hours of readings, another day in the life, basically, and doing work on YouTube. So for you guys that are watching this in a video, I like to give the live people just a moment or two to get their notification. But let me just give you a little bit of background. Like, I've known Gail for what, almost 20 years now. And she's a resident at Lilydale, New York, the oldest and largest spiritualist community. I think it's still the oldest and largest. Well, I know it's the oldest,
Oldest, yeah.
but
Yes.
it's the largest now, or not, maybe not. But in any event, yeah, and what really sticks out, back in the day when the coffee house was called Cup of Joe's, it's gone through 3 name changes since then. So we're talking 15 years ago. And
Yeah.
I had, and you guys know my story. And one of the reasons I wanted to have Gail on is because she's got a story that's going to blow you guys away. If you think my story of how I healed myself is something, just wait, you guys. But yeah, we were talking about our issues. I had my autoimmune stuff, the eczema, all the stuff that goes on there. She was going through Lyme's and I think fibromyalgia and a few other things. And we were talking, and then Spirit just kind of gave me this download. I said, yeah, and you're going to heal yourself and you're going to write books about it and teach other people how to heal themselves. And I don't remember much else about that conversation, but when I found out that it had actually happened, it jogged my memory. And I'm like, see, Spirit never lies. Spirit always gives us the information when we're ready to receive it. So, in any event, um, also, I like to share different people's awakening stories, and of course, I'm missing the main thing. We want to talk about Ho'oponopono, and I was fortunate to come across this practice, not in the depth that Gail teaches it and does it, which is another reason I wanted to have her on. But I found about this, I think it was in the late '90s, and I started doing it. It made me feel really good. That's what I remember about it. It held my heart open. So, those of you that do heart brain coherence, the Ho'oponopono is another way basically of doing heart brain coherence. There's many different ways. And of course, if I'm misspeaking, Gail, you're allowed to speak up and tell me. So, heart brain coherence is but one of many ways to engage the frequencies of the heart, to blend the heart and the brain. And of course, when heart and brain are in coherence, we become in coherence with spirit also. So
Mm.
basically, maybe a good way to just start out the conversation is, what is Ho'oponopono anyways? And Gail may do a little demo in the end, or a little, you know, something of that nature. But yeah, what exactly is that, and how can that help us?
Oh my goodness. So I think it was Shirley Calkins Smith who first used that word. And I was at the fellowships, and Shirley was such a lovely person, and she had this way about her. She would say it and she would go, oh, because she would always mess up saying the word ho'oponopono. And everybody does. And people say, how do you say that? And what is it? So you know, different people have different ways of explaining it, even in the islands. And various people who have written books about Ho'oponopono have a different way of explaining it. So, what I will be doing, of course, is coming from what it's done for me, what I've learned about it, from the few people that I've studied with on the Big Island and on the island of Maui. And when I was on Maui, the the kahunas, the teachers, the kumas would come from Oahu and taught the class on the island of Maui. And so some friends of mine, we went to that there. But Ho'oponopono is really, um, for me, it's taking a situation, any situation, pono, making it better, and then making it more better. So that's the pono, making it even like more better. So, for me personally, again, I use this when it has to do with relationships, and relationships affect everything. Everything is about relationship. Our relationship with Mother Earth, our relationship with the water, our relationship with loved ones, family members, but also with romantic partners. And so, of course, everybody knows, if you know Ho'oponopono, you know the 4 statements that go with Ho'oponopono. And it doesn't matter what order that you are saying them in. The Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, and I love you. So in my book, I have 4 chapters, and each chapter covers each one of those statements. And each one of those statements of the Ho'oponopono actually coincides with a lot of the teachings in scripture. So, people might think it's kind of woo-woo or crazy, but, I'm sorry. What is I'm sorry? When you're saying you're sorry, you are if you really are sorry, you are having this feeling which comes from your heart, right? And it's a vibration that you are putting out of remorse. Like you feel bad that you did or said something wrong, or maybe you didn't even really do something wrong, but in any event, you harmed or brought suffering to somebody else. So when you say I'm sorry, and mean it, that's the secret, by the way, is that that vibration is going out to the person, which in a long short story, I'll just say, we are, as the law of one says, you are me pushed out, right? So whatever I say to you, about you, for you, comes back to me. So if I say I'm sorry, right, with all of my heart, then that is what's coming back to me. That's the law of one. That's the law of cause and effect also. The please forgive me, the other aspect of the Ho'oponopono, when you're asking for forgiveness for what you did wrong, again, it's all about the heart and the vibration, what you are putting out. And this intelligence that is all around us knows the intent of our heart. So in the very first chapter of my book, I started out by saying, when I was a little kid, we all are kids, and our parents have said to us, oh, say you're sorry to your brother or sister. And can you think of a time, Adam, when you were younger and you were told to say you're sorry to somebody and you really didn't mean it and you went sorry?
Oh yeah.
And it's and same thing with Ho'oponopono. People who haven't studied it and practiced it, and they think they can just recite these 4 statements and that is going to work a miracle in their life. Doesn't happen that way. As a little example, I was in a relationship on and off for about 8 years. I think it was. And, we had this rocky relationship. And there was times when I really, really felt so bad about, maybe I did something to contribute. Of course I did. And, after the fact, when feelings and emotions settle down, you kind of go like, oh, I really feel bad. And I would say mentally, when I'm going to the Church of Living Spirit and I was working as a healer, when I would have an empty bench, I would put that person there. And in my mind, do Ho'oponopono with this individual. And lo and behold, within a week or 2 later, he would show up at my door. And like we would make amends and things would then be better. And it was kind of like, was that just coincidence? But there are no such things as coincidence. And when we're thinking about somebody and putting our heart and emotion and love out towards somebody, that energetic emotion is put out there like the speed of sound. And it works. Time and again, it works.
Well, I think that's an awesome explanation. Thank you very, very much. And yeah, we do like loaded questions around here. Sorry about that, but but in any regards, we want to hear about your healing journey because it's really quite amazing. And it's just a testament of mind over matter works, intention works, just like you were saying, what you put out there really works.
Yeah. Yeah, boy. So, the whole thing is in my book, The Heroine's Journey. And the subtitle is very significant. A tale of love, forgiveness, and the implications of universal laws. So the implications meaning when, again, it's like the Ho'oponopono. When you do something wrong, the universe is judge and jury, right? We have, police force and we have a whole court system and everything, but I personally would never be a police officer or judge or jury because everything that we do, everything that goes out comes back to us, right? And that's the implication of universal law, which is also called natural law or spiritual laws. It's, again, it's in scripture, but it's also in physics. So it's a fun story to tell. Sometimes I'm still like a little embarrassed, about that, but that's also been part of the healing process also. So the heroine's journey is my story. We all have some type of trauma in our early childhood that is stored as memories in our body, and these things get triggered and we don't even know it. So here I was, a traumatized child and had relationship problems my whole life. And it goes back to early childhood, and now I know why, but I had this relationship and I we had a breakup, and I saw this person that we were engaged, and I had 2 broken marriages in the past, so it took me some time to really get to a point where I could say the words "I love you" because I didn't trust anybody. And so when I finally did, and I made this commitment in my heart, well, we had this rocky road relationship, and one of our off times, it was 4th of July, and I swear I've got a past life with 4th of July, some karmic thing with that, but it's always 4th of July. There's these things that are happening. So I saw this individual out with a woman, and it immediately was like a knife in my heart. And I reacted like a little girl, throwing a temper tantrum. And at the time, I was with my daughter-in-law and some family members, and we were out at this place listening to music. And um, I'll never forget. So I'm looking over there and I'm seeing him, and he's looking at me from across, the way, and anger is boiling up in me. And he's like, you know, getting a little cozy with his new woman over here, almost like he was antagonizing me. And that's how I felt. And so I turned to my daughter-in-law. I'm like, I'll be right back. I have to go say something. Ah, sometimes, Adam, our words just come back and bite us in the butt. So I marched over and cut in between this, my ex-fiance and his new girl there. And I turned to him and said, "Hi, fancy meeting you here." And his girl gave me the look up and down and whatnot. Well, anyways, I said, this is my ex-fiance. And she's like, yeah, right. I'm like, yeah, no, really, 2 times he proposed to me, twice. And she's like, yeah, right. And again, that was painful, hurtful. And so words just came spewing out of my mouth that I am so embarrassed to say, but I have to say it because it's significant. Now, imagine really that you all are a mirror, and the law of one says, whatever I say or wish for you will come back to me, right? So, with all emotion, my heart was just breaking. And I said, with all emotion, I said, you are sick. You have a disease. And this is our magic wand. And I went like this. I'm like, you're sick. You have a disease. So, if I'm saying this into a mirror, what comes back to me? Sickness and disease. So within 10 days, I started experiencing these horrible, horrible symptoms. I had like flu-like symptoms. My joints in my legs were swelling up. Like all sorts of different things were happening to my body, to a point where I couldn't walk. And my daughter brought me to a local, not a hospital, but another place, I'll just say, without using any names. So this little local place across the street from the hospital where I went for care, the doctor there, after examining me, saw me in flip-flops. My feet were so swollen I couldn't put shoes on. So I'm in flip-flops, and he goes, do you wear those often? I'm like, yeah. Now, Graham, my daughter practically had to carry me into this care place. And he's like, a woman your age? I told him that I was out hiking in the woods and whatnot, and I don't know what was wrong with me, if something bit me or whatever. And he's like, a woman your age shouldn't be hiking in flip-flops. And he kind of like pointed to the fact, like almost as if it was my flip-flops, wearing those is what caused me pain in my ankles to swell. So he just gave me some medicine for pain, and said to call my doctor, the following week. But five different doctors, different diagnoses, led me a few months later to have that diagnosis of Lyme's disease. Now, today, I look at that was, I was just in so much pain. I wanted to know what was wrong with me. So I was searching and searching and searching. And I'm like, I want to know what's wrong with me. And now I look at that as if, it's almost like the doctor went, here's a gift for you, the diagnoses, right? And, if anybody knows about the power of words, Dr. Masaru Emoto's work, right? That word was like this badge that I started wearing. And then I started telling everybody, I have Lyme's disease. I have, I kept building that energy because that's the gift that the doctor gave me, right? He's like, here, this is what you have. And I was like, okay. And the more I talked about it and researched it, it's almost like I fed that even more. And I didn't have that typical bullseye rash or whatever. I had some mosquito bites on my ankle, and the greater details of that are in the story. And I gave away one of the nice little parts there about what I said. So what I said, that you are sick, you have you have a disease, those are the words that came back to me. So call it karma, call it law of cause and effect, call it principle of causality, call it Sir Isaac Newton's third law of motion, right? But the tick, mosquito, vector, whatever bites us, that was like just the messenger that brought to me the message or the lesson. That's it. And for years, though, for 4 years, I battled Lyme disease on and off, in and out of the hospitals, went with the moons, as many people say. Well, I bought into that program. I bought into the program that it affects your heart and it affects your vision. I was wearing special sunglasses that a Lyme specialist told me that I needed to have. It affected every joint in my body. And literally, Adam, I wanted to die. Literally wanted to die. But 4 years later, I went to Hawaii. Friends of mine said, come, Hawaii is going to heal you. And it did. And that's part of the love story of my book, of how it wasn't romantic love, but it was a compassionate love, along with Ho'oponopono, along with the essential oils that I was using. But there was no medicinal, no going in and having, I had a 30-day doxycycline treatment. But beyond that, the doctor's like, well, you're going to have to live with this. And I said, no, and of course, here in Lilydale, I had some spiritual healers working on me. None of that worked. None of that worked. It was only when I started making the connection with Ho'oponopono and natural law. Natural law is principle number 7 of spiritualism, that we create our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws.
Wow.
So I created that sickness. And in 2015, while I had the Lyme, I also had another experience with this ex-fiance, where I missed him so much and I wanted him in my life. And I went to bed sobbing one night, just feeling like everything was going wrong in my life. And so I begged, pleaded to God, take me home. I want to die. With every ounce of my being, like I had enough. I didn't have another ounce of anything in me. And that's the next day when I woke up and had a mini stroke. I spoke out into the universe that I wanted to die. And God says, okay, that's what you want? Ask and you shall receive. But here I go to the hospital, and 2 weeks later, okay, I find out that my ex-fiance there, he was in the hospital exact same time that I was having the stroke. And he was having hernia surgery. And he was wishing I was in the hospital with him. I was over here wishing he was in with me. We're both in the ER. Quantum entanglement.
Yeah.
Anyways, back to the Ho'oponopono. And 2 weeks later, he showed up at my door again. We were back together again for a little while. Fast forward, on and off with the Lyme, back and forth to Hawaii, on and off with the breakups. 2018, I had a mild heart attack. Stress in school. I was an elementary school teacher. The stress of various things that were happening in the school district made me feel like every time I was going into school, I was thinking, what's now? What's today? What's next? What's going to happen? And these thoughts kept going like this in my mind. Law of attraction. I was like pulling in heart issues, heart palpitations, and had a mild heart attack. And ended up going to the hospital again. Every time I go to the hospital, I'd be like, you can't put anything in me. I don't do medicine. Nothing goes in this body that's not natural. Nothing. And they're like, well, why are you here? I'm like, my school district made me, otherwise I couldn't go back to teaching. And so they wanted to keep me overnight. And my cardiac enzymes were elevated, and I'm like, I can't be here. I can't have you stick needles in me. And they just observed me for several hours. I had my daughter sitting at my side, and she's like, Mom. I'm like, Cassie, I'm like, just please, just love. I just need your love. That's all. And she just held my hand. I'll never forget that moment, that like I just needed to feel loved. Like somebody has this, somebody has my back, somebody cares enough, right? To just love me and let me be. And I said to her, I'm like, I don't know, I said, Cassie, if I'm meant to die, it's going to happen no matter what. But I don't think I'm meant to die. I already had a near death experience when I was in Hawaii. Like I don't think I'm not meant to die. So I ended up, on taking off that hospital gown and put my clothes back on, saying bye. And they're like, wait, no, you have to sign papers. I'm like, nope, my daughter's going to observe me. I'm going to her house. And a few weeks later, I had to go back and have a stress test before I was allowed to teach again. But I never went back that school year. It's been quite the journey. Nothing, and I've been saying since 2014, nothing goes into this body that's not natural. And so the Lyme disease, when the doctor said we have to do a PICC line and you have to walk around with an IV, I'm like, no, that was the last time that I did Western medicine. And I say knock on wood, but it's not luck. It's my connection with spirit, with natural law, with understanding that what comes to us either is manifested through the law of attraction and fear, or it's our karma. That's the only way I see illness coming to anybody these days. It's either something we feared and talked about and we created it through law of attraction, or it's our karma. And everything is that way. Everything. So
absolutely.
Through the past 3 years, everything led me to be able to see the past 3 years as simply just spiritual warfare, and not as a big scary pandemic that we needed to be afraid of, but it's spiritual warfare of the mind. And I know this because I just healed Lyme disease, celiac. I forgot about the celiac disease in there, a mini stroke, and a mild heart attack. And didn't have an IV, didn't have through any of that. So, when all this craziness started happening, I'm like, we're in World War III. So, right now, the past 2 years, I worked with the Ho'oponopono with my mom. I'm not going to get into that because that's a work that I'm still working on. This is that's my present work. My next book that I'm working on. And I'll just tell you the subtitle. Can I do that?
Yeah, please.
Okay. The subtitle, and it starts out, the first 4 chapters is just my mom's story. The subtitle is COVID, Karma, and Reincarnation.
Interesting. Well, you're saying things that we always talk about here on the channel. One thing that I found interesting, because I was going over your Facebook and description. I just love that you just started out with this year, how you said it, I gave myself Lyme disease or something like that. And saying, I thought that was perfect. And Lyme disease runs rampant here. I'm in the Hudson Valley. How many people have it? But I've known a lot of healers, and the good ones kind of saying the same thing. Just you catch Lyme disease when you're angry is what they're saying. It's something that attracts to anger.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, and
Yeah.
and I know when I got called. Oh, go ahead. We're here
No,
to
it just
hear
made
you.
me think when you said when Lyme disease happens when we're angry, right? So Hawkins scale of consciousness, anger is towards the lower bottom part of our vibrational frequency, our body and our vibrations.
Yep.
But I wanted to point out, and I don't know if this is um, okay to say, but I'll say it, and please my apologies afterwards. But again, if this helps this popular singer Avril Lavigne, um, she has an album um, that goes right along with, um, being bit by ticks, which is, a lot of anger and relationships and things like that. And she was somebody who had Lyme disease. And like, I really want to just meet her and just give her a hug and just say, I feel you, sister. I feel your pain, what you've been through and experienced. Um, some of her song titles are even like, I wonder if she's manifesting more of some of this because of, the power of our words, the emotions that we put into it.
Mhm.
And Adam, I tell you, I keep thinking like one day my book, The Heroine's Journey, is going to be out. This book, this is going to be out in a movie someday, kind of like an Eat, Pray, Love movie where people are going to see what happens in love, in relationships, and that. But I want Avril Lavigne. I want her to play in the movie. It's going to be on.
Cool. I love it.
It's my crazy dream.
Yeah, yeah. Everything you're saying, is absolutely on point. I talk about having the eczema, but I don't talk about a lot. Although the regulars know is when I had a heart attack. That was in Janet O'Havock's spiritualist church at Journey Within when oh God, what was his name? I can't even remember the teacher's name. That's terrible. Colin Bates. It
Oh,
was his
yeah,
workshop. Beautiful man. Yeah.
yeah,
It turned out the heart attack was my I shouldn't even say my aneurysm because it's never was
yep,
mine, but an
yep.
aneurysm in my heart bursting, rupturing. I didn't get surgery till 7 months later, and it healed itself. And that's medically impossible. You ask any cardiologist or doctor, that's impossible. But law of attraction, right? Like attracts like. I
Yep.
happen to have a surgeon who is a Sikh now, and I'm a Kundalini yogi. Now he's a Sikh from India, and when I went to his office, the first meeting was he looked at me, said, "I'm not going to heal you. God's going to heal you. I'm just his instrument." And I loved him right then and there. And then the second meeting, he looked at me and said, I know how my patients are going to do after surgery just by their attitude. And I explained that. Well, I said, well, I'm a little bit nervous. And then he kind of looked at me funny and said, well, if you weren't nervous, I think there's something wrong with you. But then I told him, no, I know I'm not dying. I know there's more here to do. I know this is going to be good. And he nodded in approval. Now, flash forward, that was in 2017. Every time I go to the cardiologist, because I had this operation, I need a little bit of a time with Western medicine. He just shakes his head and looks at me, says, from what you've been through, I never thought you would do this well. It's like never in a million years did I ever think you would do this well after the surgery you had and what you've been through and everything. And again,
Mhm.
it's the mind, it's the intention, it's the law of attraction, like you were saying. It's really your belief. And the fact that you were able to manifest disease like that in your body tells me that you're really good at the law of attraction. So if you want to make a movie and have a famous singer, it's going to happen. I have no doubt about that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to check in also. I mean, this sounds like kind of a spiritual awakening unto itself, but you feel
Yeah.
like you've had like a spiritual epiphany, and if you'd like to share that, we would definitely be interested.
Well, the spiritual epiphany really. So, um, author and mystic Joseph Campbell, who was a professor of mythology, he wrote about the hero's journey. And,
Mhm.
talk about synchronicity, Adam. So I'm in Maui writing my book. And, I went to the Hay House Writers Conference, and Reed Tracy, I manifested meeting Reed Tracy, by the way. That's all in the book. But Reed Tracy says, Google your working title that you are going to be putting out there to see what your competition is or what's out there in that same genre. So I Googled the hero and heroines. So because, I'm the female, like I'm the heroine of my life. Nobody, came and saved me on a white horse or anything. I'm the
Yeah.
heroine of my life. And so I Googled that heroine's journey, and up pops on my laptop, this man, Joseph Campbell, and the hero's journey. I'm like, who's this man who stole my idea? I was like, so fun. And I start reading about Joseph Campbell, right? The hero's journey. And I'm like reading, first of all, he lived in Hawaii. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, how exciting, synchronistic is that? I'm like, I want to go meet this guy. And then I keep reading his birth and death date, right? So he died. And his birthday is March 26th. That's my birthday.
Yeah, I say that's your birthday too, right? I mean, don't have to be psychic to figure that what's coming next.
Yeah. Yeah. So here I'm thinking maybe I should change my title and not use the heroine's journey because it's too cliche with having him do it. But after I saw that, I was like, no, no, no. I need to keep it there because that's just too synchronistic that we have the same birthdays. This was my working title. And we both have this love for Hawaii, for Maui, the islands, all that. So I kept with that. But the whole epiphany that came is that, and again, that heroine's journey that everybody, that's the Wizard of Oz. And so now, like when I'm doing a class in regards to manifesting or my book or whatever, I have some real pretty ruby glittery shoes that I wear, like Dorothy's ruby slippers, and I'll come out wearing those. I love it. And I'm like, we're all Dorothy walking the yellow brick road, And so if you can look at that movie, that you are one of the characters in that movie. And then I'm like, you are all of the characters in that movie because, when I'm the leading person, I have to have the villain, which is the Wicked Witch of the West, right? So I'm like, who the Wicked Witch of the West was in my book? And, would that be my boss that was, or would that be and then we have mentors and all of this other stuff. But the epiphany is that once we go through this and we realize individually that we are creators, we are co-creators within this vibrational world. What we speak out, we create when we add that emotional and visualization aspect to it. Like in the Bible where it says where two or more are gathered, there I am. So I said, this is one, your visualization, your thoughts. The two is your heart and emotion to it. When you marry those two things, boom, that's the I am. That's the creation. That's the two or more gathered. Yeah.
By the way, I love anybody that quotes the book of Matthew, so you're in good here.
Oh my gosh. I just have to, little side note, I quote scripture because of the physics and natural laws, God's laws, spiritual laws that are in throughout the Bible, right?
Mhm.
But I also want to point out Paramahansa Yogananda's book,
Oh, yes.
Autobiography of a Yogi. Like, this book has sat on my shelf for 10 years. And it just came to me this past year when my dear friend Tony passed. Oh. And again, some of the stuff that's in there, I don't want to go into there, but it ties all of this together, how we and our minds are so powerful if a little example again of how we create things, right? Law of attraction. And this might trigger some people, so I'll just say, okay, if this triggers you, I'm sorry, but maybe that's part of, maybe I'm supposed to be the bad guy in your story right now. But during the past 3 years, what some people call a pandemic, I don't call it that. I'm like, it's spiritual warfare. So I had a friend, she was a single mom with 2 daughters, and she was very, very stressed. A lot of her coworkers were getting sick, staying home, and she's like, gosh, I wish I could get that and stay home and get paid. And I'm like, I can help you. You want to manifest that? I can help you manifest that diagnosis of COVID just so you can stay home and be asymptomatic, because it's just law of attraction. That's it. So lo and behold, I'll just say she did manifest that diagnosis so she can get a paid vacation at home. So I started sharing with other people. I'm like, you want a paid vacation? Because they're paying people to stay home. I can help you manifest a COVID diagnosis and get your 2 weeks and be asymptomatic. That's the key, because nobody wants to be sick, but you have to at least have a little sniffle or something to prove that, I guess maybe some people wanted a little something so that way they felt okay that they weren't quite honest. But it was actually their practice to know that they could manifest COVID even, right? If I'm allowed to say that.
I manifested COVID twice now. I mean, the first time I knew I was going to get it, and actually, believe it or not, I wanted to get it, not to get a paid vacation, because if I don't work, I don't get paid. But
Yeah.
But because I'm not going to get a vaccine. You guys can do whatever the heck you want, but for me,
Right.
that's not going to happen.
Yep.
But at the same time, I'm not going to hide in my house all the time. And through the whatever you want to call it, pandemic or whatever, I would still go to my office, maybe once or twice a week. I'd open the windows, mask would be optional. And I was not going to let my immune system atrophy over fear of isolating myself, because we need viruses. We need to be able to handle viruses. So that wasn't going to happen. And when I got it, it's like when it's in your body, you get a whole new perspective. I'm like, this is not real. This is a program. This is a mind virus. And I healed it in 18 hours. I mean, I had some trace symptoms for a couple of weeks, but I broke the fever. It was a high fever. I mean, it was over 103. I broke it in 18 hours. I had no fever. I was out. I even did a live stream the second day of COVID, and it was a nasty case. So yeah, mind over matter, law of attraction, natural law. All this stuff is really, really amazing stuff. And thanks so much for sharing all this. This is great. I mean, I could go on for hours and hours with you because you're so freaking interesting and you have a lot to say. By the way, Gail's books, the links to her books are in the description. And I know you wanted to do something with us with the Ho'oponopono to close up. Unless you did that already earlier on, but
no, I'll go into it again. So that way whoever has joined us can really focus on this if they so choose. And since Ho'oponopono is about making something better, making it more better, making it right, making amends. So I would invite you and the audience participants here, to bring to mind either a difficult relationship, whether it's a family member, a colleague, a relationship, romantic relationship, partner, neighbor, your community, even these world leaders and people who planned, practice, and put out this simulation of a pandemic, right? That's my practice for me personally, is forgiving those people and sending that love to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So because I know of the law of attraction, and I know that if we all gather and send our intention for love and peace, that's what we get. If we sit around a conference table, plan, prepare, and practice, and put out into the world a big pandemic, that's what happened. Okay. So those people, some of them did it intentionally. Yeah. Some of them have no idea how natural laws work. And then that trickled down and, people just started participating. So for me personally, I'm going to bring to mind, you know, when the last, so my mom was ventilated 4 times.
Mm.
4. The last time, um, the soul already left the body. And when on the 3rd day, I was finally able to go in to see her. And I'm going to say this real quickly, but it's been a powerful 2.5 years of trauma for me. And I'm practicing saying this without breaking into tears. And I've really been working on this because I've manifested some ill health. So I found my mom in the hospital, already passed, but ventilated and being, still given medications and stuff as if she was still alive. But, 3 days in an ICU room, the smell of a dead, decaying body just tore me to pieces, that I became irate. I had such rage in me to find my mother in this way. And again, if you know anything about Hawkins' scale of consciousness, for 2 years, for I had so much resentment. If you look up resentment, what that does to your blood, your cells in your body, and I don't want any labels, so I just have been doing my own work. And so when I stepped out of my mom's ICU room after they let me in, I said to the doctor, I'm like, my mom is not in that body. And I'm sobbing. And he says, I know. So my ho'oponopono goes to this doctor. And the nurse that stood behind him and who said, I'm sorry, she came in this way. 3 days earlier, she came in that way, dead. So my ho'oponopono right now goes to them.
Oh.
So I invite you and the listeners here to just close your eyes and bring to mind a relationship that you would like to make better. Somebody that you're angry with, even. Somebody that you've been unable to forgive. And I invite you to consider the fact that either there's a karmic debt involved somewhere, or they're ignorant and not knowing what they're doing. They're not understanding. So it's part of that. So come into your heart space. You may even put your hands on your heart. Taking a deep breath. I want you to think about, what would it be like to live in a world where everyone just loved one another? That there was no fear, no sadness, no wars, no sickness, no poverty, no hunger. Imagine that and smile about it. Picture that. And now bring your mind back to the person that you want to make amends with and do this ho'oponopono with. And know that whatever you put out is going to come back to you. If you can offer this person love and forgiveness, all things you put out return to the sender. Amakua, divine creator, all that there is. If I or my ancestors caused you and your ancestors any listener, viewer, at any time and space from here forward, anyone who listens to this energetically and through your families, if I and my ancestors caused you and your ancestors any harm, sorrow, suffering, I am sorry. We are sorry. Forgive us for our mistakes, for our wrongdoing, for our wrong thinking. Forgive us. Forgive me. As you say out loud right now, speak out loud, I forgive you.
I forgive you.
And that is what comes back to you, because I am just a mirror to each and every one of you. You are forgiven for any sorrows, harm, through all time and space, all the wars. Think of all the wars in our history books from the beginning of time. You are forgiven. Thank you. Thank you for the grace. Thank you for the compassion. Thank you for the love unconditionally. Thank you for seeing the light in me. Thank you for understanding that I had pain that I reacted from, or my family, or we didn't know any better. Thank you for the grace. And I love you. I love you unconditionally. I love every single one of you, every one of you listeners, your families. Truly, I love you, and I send my prayers of gratitude for each and every one of you. And as you proceed on your spiritual awakening, may it go easier with the Ho'oponopono, and it shall be so. And with all intention, I love you unconditionally.
That is beautiful. And I just have to chime in with one thing. Well, firstly, remember, Gail has healed herself from something that doctors gave up on her with, basically wanted to give her medicine to allay her symptoms so she could just get sicker and sicker, basically. And this is how she did it. And the other thing I wanted to mention, because you brought up the emotional frequency scale and Dr. Hawkins, is even below fear, even below anger, is guilt and shame.
Shame.
Now, guilt and shame is going to make you sick faster than just about anything. But the Ho'opono prayer will neutralize all that guilt and shame, because you are putting that out there, that forgiveness and all that. So,
yes,
again,
we don't want to ever stay in that place of, once you realize like you did something, just like I realized, like my words created that Lyme disease.
Right.
Like I could be ashamed still, but yeah, Ho'oponopono that.
Ho'oponopono that. So again, before Gail escapes, let me just get her information up for you one more time. And, no pressure, but if you have anything in closing that you'd like to share, please do. But if not, you've shared a lot with us and we appreciate it.
Oh gosh. As we go into this fall season, right?
Yeah.
What is out there in the energy of fall, right? Fall brings another season of flu or colds or whatever. It's only in your belief system that it would affect you. If it's not in your belief system, if you say, no way, I defy that, right? You can just defy that. Raise your vibration, and you won't have that experience of anything unless you have it as a karma, and then go back to the Ho'oponopono. Yep. That's it. And again, truly from my heart, Adam, I love you, and thank you for having me.
I love you too.
And,
yeah.
Remember,
karma is also a part of law of attraction. So there's no, shame or guilt if you do everything right and you still get sick. It's a lesson. It's learning. It's from other lifetimes. So
yeah.
So that's,
and it was part of your journey coming in, right? We planned this before our entrance there.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from all my illnesses. I mean, I learned that I'm powerful and can heal myself, right? And so did
Yeah.
you. So, and a lot of
Yeah.
you can share in that experience. So we went a little bit over, but I didn't even start to talk about Manly Hall and people like that, and
Oh,
Dr. Joe Dispenza and all these
oh,
great
yeah.
teachers that we could have dove into. And of course,
Right, and Greg
Yogananda.
Braden, don't I wanna throw in Greg Braden in there. I was just at
Greg
his
Braden,
conference. Yep.
absolutely. Yeah, I saw him. I remember when I saw him at Lilydale, and what was it, 05 or 06? Or
Yeah.
he was great then, and he's great now. All right, but we're gonna close up and we're gonna end. So and on the I think it's the 26th or 27th, I'm gonna have another medium on, Winterbrook Ryan, who's going to talk about trans mediumship and her journey. So that'll be the next interview that I have. And then Thursday, of course, is our upload, and I have an exercise in mediumship to connect with your spirit loved ones and your guides. That's very simple, and something that I do that I think spirit gave me directly, because I haven't learned it in a class yet, although I have in the class of spirits. So I'm going to share that. So that's the upload. Of course, there'll be other cool things. So, thank you for being here. If you like what we're doing, give the video a like. Maybe more people will, the algorithm maybe will share this with more people, and they can learn about the gift and beauty of Ho'oponopono, and the fact that we are powerful. And there are many things that we can heal, and those things that we can't, well, we can connect with others, and collectively we can still heal it as well. So we are
Everything can
community.
heal.
So it's
Yep.
all possible. All
All
right.
things are possible.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.